Welcome to the Boxing Chronicles. Today we bring you the incredible story of Jack Johnson, the first African-American heavyweight champion of the United States, a man who fought not only opponents inside the ring, but also racism, hatred, and the entire system outside it. This is not just a boxing story, this is history in motion. Jack Johnson was born on March 31, 1878, in Galveston, Texas. He was the son of former slaves, Henry and Tiny Johnson. Life for African Americans during this time was extremely hard. The Civil War had ended, slavery was abolished, but racism and segregation were everywhere in the United States. Jack grew up in poverty, in a world where opportunities for a black child were almost non-existent. As a young boy, Johnson faced constant challenges. He worked in docks as a delivery boy, and in many odd jobs just to survive. But Jack had something special: courage, strength, and an unbreakable will. He loved to fight, not because he wanted trouble, but because he wanted respect. From street fights in Galveston to bare-knuckle matches in secret clubs, Jack began building his reputation as a fighter. By the time Johnson reached his late teens, he was already showing remarkable talent in boxing. At this time, boxing was an underground sport for the most part. Legal boxing was still developing under the Queensberry rules, and racial segregation was very strong in America. Black fighters were not given the same opportunities as white fighters. Johnson fought in what was called the Battle Royal, a humiliating and dangerous event where several black men fought each other at the same time for the entertainment of white audiences. And the last man standing would earn a small prize. Jack hated this, but he did it because it was his only way to make money and start his career. Soon, Johnson began moving up the ranks, beating many fighters across Texas and nearby states. His style was different from most fighters of his era. At a time when boxing was seen as a brutal slugging contest, Johnson introduced defense, footwork, and head movement like no one had seen before. He could dodge punches effortlessly and then counter with precision. He was calm, confident, and sometimes arrogant in the ring. This made him both admired and hated. By the early 1900s, Johnson had made a name for himself as the best black heavyweight boxer in America. But there was one big problem. The heavyweight championship title was held by white fighters, and the boxing world did not want a black man as champion. This racial barrier was called the color line. White champions refused to fight black challengers, fearing both defeat and the social consequences of losing to a black man. Jack Johnson, however, refused to accept this barrier. He openly challenged the champions, demanding a title shot. He traveled around America and even internationally, fighting anyone who would face him. His record kept improving, and so did his confidence. Johnson was not just beating his opponents, he was destroying them, and he did it with a smile on his face. Finally, after years of being denied a shot at the title, Jack Johnson got his chance. On December 26, 1908, in Sydney, Australia, he fought Tommy Burns, the reigning world heavyweight champion. The fight was historic. For 14 rounds, Johnson completely dominated Burns. He taunted him, laughed at him, and punished him with every punch. The referee had to stop the fight to save Burns from serious injury. That day, Jack Johnson became the first African-American heavyweight champion of the world and of the United States. His victory sent shockwaves through America. For the black community, it was a moment of pride and celebration. But for many white Americans, it was an outrage. Newspapers called for a great white hope to defeat Johnson and restore what they saw as racial order. Jack Johnson didn't just win the title, he shattered racial barriers. But his victory also made him a target. The hatred and racism he faced after becoming champion were unlike anything a boxer had ever experienced. He lived his life boldly, refusing to hide, and that made the world both admire and hate him. This is just the beginning of Jack Johnson's incredible story. Jack Johnson's rise to prominence was not just a sports story, it was a revolution in American culture. When he captured the heavyweight title in 1908 by defeating Tommy Burns in Sydney, it sent shockwaves across the United States. At that time, America was deeply segregated under Jim Crow laws. For an African-American man to dominate the most prestigious title in boxing, the heavyweight championship, was something that many people of that era couldn't even imagine. But Jack Johnson didn't stop at winning. He flaunted his success in ways that challenged every racial stereotype of the time. He drove flashy cars, wore expensive suits, and openly dated white women, something considered dangerous and taboo during those days. Newspapers and politicians of that era portrayed him as a threat to the social order. But Johnson didn't care. He lived life on his own terms. This made him both a hero to many in the African-American community and a villain in the eyes of white America. The biggest moment of his career came in 1910 when the so-called Fight of the Century was scheduled. His opponent was former heavyweight champion James J. Jeffries, who had come out of retirement as the Great White Hope. The fight was billed as a battle to restore the pride of the white race. On July 4th, 1910, in Reno, Nevada, tens of thousands of fans gathered to witness the historic match. Johnson dominated the fight from start to finish, and in the 15th round, Jeffries' corner threw in the towel. Johnson's victory was complete, and it sparked race riots across the country. White mobs attacked African Americans in many cities, angry that a black man had humiliated their champion. But Johnson's victory wasn't just about boxing. It was about breaking barriers. It challenged the deeply rooted racial hierarchy of the time and opened the door for future generations of black athletes. However, his triumphs came with consequences. The U.S. government soon targeted him under the Mann Act, a law that prohibited transporting women across state lines for immoral purposes. Many historians agree this was a racially motivated attack to punish him for his defiance. Johnson fled the country, living in exile for years, continuing to fight internationally. During his time abroad, he became a global celebrity, fighting in places like Paris, Havana, and Mexico City. Yet, the constant pressure and legal troubles took a toll. In 1920, he surrendered to U.S. authorities and served time in prison. Even after his release, Johnson never regained his championship glory, but his legacy as a trailblazer remained unshaken. Jack Johnson died in 1946 in a tragic car accident, but his story didn't end there. Decades later, he was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, and in 2018, President Donald Trump granted him a posthumous pardon for his conviction under the Mann Act, an acknowledgement that his punishment had been unjust. Jack Johnson's life is more than a boxing story. It's a story of courage, resilience, and defiance. He fought not only in the ring but against the system, proving that talent and determination could challenge even the most powerful social barriers. Today, his name stands among the greatest legends in sports history and the history of civil rights. Thank you for staying with us till the end. If you enjoyed this incredible story of Jack Johnson, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories about the legends who changed the world. See you in the next video.